I always knew my grandma deserved better. But for 5 years, our entire family acted like she didn't exist. No calls, no visits, not even a message on Eid or her birthday, while she stayed quiet, smiling like it didn't hurt, telling me softly, "People show you who they are, just believe them." Your one click can keep these stories alive. Subscribe, because every voice deserves to be heard. I was the only one who still went to see her in that small, silent house at the edge of town, where old photos gathered dust and memories lingered in the air, and sometimes I'd catch her staring at them, not crying, just remembering. Then one day, everything shifted. I walked in and found her sitting at the table, holding a paper with trembling hands, but her eyes were different this time. Calm, certain. "We need to talk," she said, sliding the paper toward me. And when I saw the number, $2,300,000, my heart stopped. I looked up at her, confused, but she just gave a soft, knowing smile and said, "I guess they'll remember me now." And in that moment, I realized something chilling. They had no idea what was about to happen. The news didn't stay quiet for long. Within 48 hours, it spread through the family like wildfire. These same people who hadn't called in years suddenly remembering her number, showing up at her door with forced smiles and cheap mikai, acting like nothing had ever happened. I was sitting beside her when the first knock came, then another, and another, until the house that had been silent for 5 years was filled with voices pretending to care. "Amy, we were just busy," one of my uncles said, not even able to meet her eyes. "We missed you," another added quickly, like it was a rehearsed line. Grandma didn't react. She just looked at them calmly, the same gentle expression on her face. But this time, it wasn't softness, it was control. More relatives kept arriving, cousins, aunties, even people who hadn't visited since I was a child, 19 of them in total, filling the room with fake concern and hidden greed, their eyes scanning the house like they were already calculating their share. Then someone finally said it. "So, what are you planning to do with the money?" The room went quiet for a second, but not out of respect, out of anticipation. I felt my chest tighten, waiting for her response, but Grandma didn't rush. She slowly placed her cup down, looked around the room at every single face that had ignored her for years, and then spoke in a voice so calm it made the silence heavier. "You all remembered me very quickly." No one replied. No one could. She turned slightly toward me and nodded. And that's when I stood up and walked to the shelf, pulling out a folder they had never noticed before. "What is that?" one of my cousins asked nervously. I didn't answer. I just handed it to the closest person. As they opened it, their expressions shifted. Confusion, then shock, then panic. This can't be real," someone whispered. Another voice, louder this time. "You already signed this?" Grandma didn't raise her voice, didn't defend herself, didn't explain. She just sat there, watching them unravel. 5 years, she said quietly, "and not one of you asked if I was okay." The room erupted, questions, accusations, desperate attempts to recover control, but it was already slipping through their fingers. I stepped back, letting the truth settle in, watching as their confidence turned into fear. Because this wasn't a discussion anymore. It was a decision that had already been made. And the worst part for them, they were too late to change anything. Backhand index pointing, right? They thought they came for money, but they walked into something else entirely. The noise didn't stop immediately. Voices overlapped, excuses got louder, and suddenly everyone had a story about why they couldn't be there for her all those years. But Grandma never raised her voice. Not once. She just listened, the same way she had probably listened to silence for 5 long years. Except this time, she wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. One of my uncles stepped forward, trying to take control again, his tone softer now, almost pleading, "Amy, we're your family, we made mistakes, but we can fix this." And for a moment, the room held its breath like everything depended on her next words, but she simply looked at him with a calm that didn't belong to someone who had been ignored. It belonged to someone who had already moved on. "Fix what?" she asked quietly, and no one had an answer. Another relative tried a different approach, guilt this time. You know, we love you, money shouldn't come between us. And that's when I saw it, the smallest change in her expression. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. Money didn't come between us, she said, her voice steady. Your absence did. That line hit harder than anything else, and suddenly all the rehearsed lines fell apart. Someone muttered about misunderstandings. Another blamed distance. Another blamed life being busy, but none of it sounded real anymore, not in a room that had been empty for years. Grandma slowly stood up, not in a dramatic way, just enough to show she was done sitting through their performance, and the entire room went quiet again without her even asking for it. I spent 5 years learning something important, she continued, looking around at each face, not with hate, but with finality. Love that only shows up when there's money isn't love, it's timing. No one interrupted her this time. No one dared to. She gestured lightly toward the folder still trembling in someone's hands. Everything is already arranged, she said, and the panic returned instantly, sharper now, more desperate. What do you mean arranged? Who did you give it to? Were your children? The questions came faster, louder, but she didn't match their energy. She stayed exactly where she was, calm, grounded, unshaken. The house, the money, all of it, she said, is going somewhere it will actually mean something. I could see it in their eyes. They were realizing this wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a moment they could talk their way out of. This was the consequence of 5 years of silence finally catching up to them. One of my cousins snapped, frustration breaking through the fear. So that's it? You're just cutting us off like we never mattered. And that's when Grandma gave the only answer that mattered. You decided that, she replied, not coldly, not harshly, just truthfully. The room felt heavier after that, like even the air understood something had ended. A few of them tried one last time. Soft voices, apologies, promises to visit more, to call, to be better. But it all came too late, sounding like echoes of something that should have happened years ago. Grandma didn't argue, didn't reject them dramatically. She simply didn't move toward them anymore. And that distance said everything words didn't need to. I stepped closer to her side. Not because she needed support, but because I understood what this moment meant. This wasn't about money. It never was. It was about choosing peace after years of being overlooked. One by one, they started leaving, not in anger, but in something quieter, realization, the kind that doesn't come with shouting, just heavy silence and avoided eye contact. 19 people had walked in expecting something, and all 19 walked out with nothing but the truth they didn't want to face. The house grew quiet again, just like before, except this time, it didn't feel empty. It felt protected. Grandma sat back down, exhaling slowly, not relieved, not sad, just settled. I looked at her, wondering if she felt any regret, but she simply gave me that same gentle smile and said, "Peace is expensive, but I finally paid for it." And in that moment, I realized something most people never understand until it's too late. Family isn't who shows up when you have something to give. It's who stays when you have nothing left. She didn't lose 19 relatives that day. She lost access to people who had already walked away years ago. And as the door closed behind the last one, she didn't look back, not at them, not at the past, not even for a second. Because some endings don't need closure, they just need a decision. Backhand index pointing, right? They didn't lose an argument. They lost access.